So think about this for a second. You are living in a world right now with over 5 billion people connected on social media.
Right. It's a massive number.
It is. I mean, you have instant, basically frictionless access to the thoughts and daily lives of the entire human race.
You can reach anyone in seconds.
Exactly. But here's the really mind-bending contradiction. Right now, global anxiety and clinical loneliness are at all-time highs.
Which is just wild when you think about it.
It is. Why does having total information access leave your brain literally starving for actual connection?
Well, it's kind of the defining paradox of our modern age, right?
Yeah.
We've built this crazy infrastructure of hyperconnectivity, but the actual neural pathways in our brains are sending out these lethal warning signals of isolation.
So it's like a trick. The platforms give you the behavioral illusion of contact.
Exactly. But biologically.
Yeah.
Your nervous system is experiencing a really profound relational starvation.
Which brings us to our deep dive today. We're looking at the groundbreaking work of Dr. Daniel J. Siegel in his book, The Developing Mind.
Such an important book. It really changed everything.
It really did. We are going to explore this revolutionary framework he calls interpersonal neurobiology.
Right, which sounds complicated, but we'll break it down.
We want to figure out what is actually going wrong in our heads and, what the biological mechanisms are that can fix it.
Because there are real solutions.
Yeah, but before we get into the solutions, I want to understand the root of the problem. Where did our understanding of the brain just, go completely off track?
Well, to find the answer, Dr. Siegel and a bunch of cross-disciplinary scientists had to completely change where they were looking.
What do you mean?
For decades, traditional Western science had this unshakable assumption. If you want to understand the mind, you look strictly inside the skull.
Right. You isolate the individuals.
Exactly. You look at brain chemistry. Right. The neurotransmitters.
Like the fluctuating levels of serotonin and dopamine, the classic chemical imbalance theory.
You got it. The whole idea was that you are your brain. It's locked in your head. And if you're lonely, it's just a mechanical error in your hardware.
But that's wrong.
They realized it was fundamentally incomplete. To actually find the human mind, they had to break out of the physical boundary of the body.
Break out of the skull.
Yeah. The massive paradigm shift here is that your mind is not just brain activity.
Okay, wait.
It's an emergent process that exists within your nervous system, sure, but also inherently between you and other people.
Hold on, I've got to push back on that immediately.
Go for it.
I can close my eyes, right? I can plug my ears, sit in a pitch black room, and still do, complex math in my head.
Sure, you can.
I can remember my childhood or invent a story. That is my mind operating entirely alone.
Right. Isolated from everyone.
Yeah. So how does that fit this whole the mind requires other people theory?
Well, that's a crucial distinction. Doing math in a dark room is just the execution of a cognitive process.
Okay.
But you have to look at how that complex system was built in the first place.
Oh, I see.
If you were taken at birth and completely isolated from human contact, you wouldn't be doing math in that room.
I'd just be kept alive physically.
Right, with nutrients or whatever.
Right.
But without relational interaction, you wouldn't even have a functional sense of self.
Wow.
The physical brain would be sitting in your skull, sure, but the mind system itself would fail to develop.
So the hardware is there, but the operating system never boots up.
That is a perfect way to put it. In this framework, we look at what they call the golden triangle of human experience.
The golden triangle. Okay, what are the 3 points?
First, you have the brain, which actually includes your entire extended nervous system.
Right, the physical mechanism.
Second, you have relationships. This is the physical sharing of energy and information between people.
And the third?
The mind. The mind is the process that regulates that flow of energy and information.
Man, that is a slap in the face to our whole concept of individualism.
It really is. We love to think we own our minds exclusively.
But you're saying we don't.
You don't. Your mind literally requires the participation of other minds to function properly.
To regulate itself, right?
Exactly. To maintain its own structural integrity.
But how does that actually work mechanically? I mean, are you saying my mind exists between us right now, like a Wi-Fi signal?
It is quite literally a physical transmission. Let's look at the physics of just talking to each other.
Okay, let's do it.
When you speak to me, your vocal cords vibrate. That creates kinetic energy, compressing air molecules.
Sound waves.
Right. Those invisible sound waves travel across the physical space between us, hitting my eardrum.
Which is mechanical energy.
Yes. And then that turns into fluid waves in my inner ear, triggering an electrochemical cascade.
So it hits your brain.
Ions flow in and out of my neurons. My brain takes that energy flow, extracts the information, and my neural firing is physically altered in real time.
Okay, I follow the physics of sound. But hearing a sound doesn't change who I am?
Doesn't.
I mean, it's just passing data back and forth.
And that is where the science takes a radical turn. It isn't just passing data. It leaves a permanent structural mark on your biology.
Seriously? How?
Through a process called epigenesis.
Okay, let's break that down.
For a long time, scientists treated DNA as this unchangeable blueprint. You inherit genes, and that's your absolute destiny.
Right, you get what you get.
But epigenetics shows us that lived experience directly alters how our genes are expressed.
I want to really understand this. How does a simple conversation reach down into my cells and change my DNA?
Think of your DNA as a massive library of books.
Okay, a huge library.
The books themselves, the underlying genetic code, they don't change.
Right.
But epigenetics acts like the librarian. The librarian decides which books get pulled off the shelf to be read and which ones stay locked away.
Oh, wow. So our experiences are the librarian.
Yes. Let's say you're in profound distress, and a friend gives you a look of complete understanding.
A moment of deep empathy.
Right. That shared energy triggers a massive physiological shift. It lowers your cortisol, releases oxytocin.
The feel-good chemical.
But it goes deeper. That chemical cascade reaches the cellular level and alters complex molecules that sit on top of your DNA.
Wait, it physically touches the DNA.
It literally unspools the DNA strand, exposes certain genes, and commands them to synthesize new proteins.
That is staggering.
And those proteins then instruct your neurons to grow new synaptic connections.
So you're saying empathy isn't just a nice psychological comfort, it physically rebuilds the brain's architecture.
Yeah, it turns specific genes on or off. Every highly attuned interaction you have is initiating protein synthesis.
So our relationships are actively sculpting our brains.
Constantly.
If that's true, we have to talk about infancy.
Oh, absolutely. That's the critical period.
Because that's when our brain is growing at an explosive rate. And we are completely helplessly dependent on others.
We are entirely at the mercy of our caregivers.
But here is the problem, the big blind spot. You can't remember anything before you were about 3 years old.
Right. Infantile amnesia.
It's a total blank. Yet, according to Dr. Siegel's work, those blank years dictate your adult behaviors.
They dictate your choice of partners, your deepest fears, everything.
How can an event completely shape my life if the memory of it is entirely gone?
Well, that's the thing. The memory isn't gone.
It's not.
Not at all. It's just stored in a format that your conscious mind doesn't recognize as a memory.
Okay, explain that.
We have to separate human memory into two distinct biological categories. Implicit memory and explicit memory.
Let's define those carefully, because this seems huge.
It's central to the whole framework. Implicit memory is the older, more primal system.
How early does it start?
It is fully mature and active from the second you were born. Even in the womb, actually.
Wow. What does it record?
Feelings, bodily sensations, behavioral impulses. It builds perceptual models of how the world works.
An explicit memory.
That's what we normally think of as memory. Recalling facts, building an autobiographical timeline of your life.
So why don't I have explicit memories of being a baby?
Because the biological hardware required for it just isn't ready yet. Specifically, a structure called the hippocampus.
The hippocampus, what does that do?
Think of it as a cognitive librarian. When an event happens, it takes all the raw sensory data, binds it together, and stamps it.
Stamps it with what?
A date, a time, and a context. But in an infant, the hippocampus is mostly offline.
So none of those early experiences get a timestamp?
Exactly. They are stored entirely as raw, implicit data in areas like the amygdala.
Okay, if implicit memory doesn't have a timestamp, what does it actually feel like when it gets triggered today?
This is the terrifying part of the design. When an explicit memory is triggered, you know it's from the past.
Right. I think, oh, I remember falling off my bike in 3rd grade.
But with an implicit memory, there is no sensation of remembering.
Because there's no timestamp.
Exactly. Your brain doesn't tell you, hey, this is a feeling from 20 years ago. You just feel visceral terror.
You feel like the danger's happening right now.
Yes. You get a sudden urge to run, or you feel totally paralyzed, and you think it's about the present moment.
So it's kind of like a smartphone's background operating system.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Like you never actually see the raw code, you never interact with it directly.
Right.
But it completely dictates how every single app functions. You don't know it's running, but it's controlling your battery, your screen, everything.
That is highly accurate. And we have to understand why the brain builds this background OS in the first place.
To survive.
Yes. The brain's ultimate goal isn't to be a perfect hard drive storing objective records.
Right.
It is an anticipation machine.
An anticipation machine.
It averages out all those early implicit memories to build mental models. It wants to predict what happens next.
Because prediction keeps you alive.
Exactly.
So if I'm a toddler and I get attacked by a huge aggressive dog,
Right.
my brain doesn't need to explicitly remember the date or the weather or the breed of the dog.
It just needs the background OS to trigger massive fear the next time you see any large animal.
The lack of context is actually a feature, not a bug. It makes the reaction instantaneous.
It prioritizes speed over accuracy. But here's the really dark implication.
What happens when the danger isn't a dog?
What happens when the biological danger is a parent's unpredictable, volatile mood?
Oh, wow. The survival mechanism would turn inward. It would start tracking the parent.
Precisely. If a caregiver is chronically distant, terrifying, or wildly inconsistent, the anticipation machine averages that out.
And it writes a new background code.
A code that says, intimacy is inherently dangerous. Vulnerability leads to abandonment.
The people supposed to protect me are the source of my pain.
Yes. And because that code has no timestamp, what happens 30 years later?
When they try to enter a close adult relationship,
Their brain instantly triggers that exact same mortal panic.
they anticipate danger in every intimate connection, and they have absolutely no idea why.
None. Because it's implicit. They just feel an overwhelming sense of immediate threat and pull away.
Which brings us to the ultimate test of this implicit programming, adult attachment.
Yes. The science of how we connect as adults.
How do we even measure this hidden operating system?
Researchers developed a brilliant tool called the Adult Attachment Interview, or the AAI.
And the findings from the AAI basically overturned everything we thought we knew about generational trauma.
Completely overturned it.
Because the sources highlight this deeply counterintuitive finding. If I want to know if my kids will have a secure attachment to me,
The deciding factor isn't your past trauma.
it's not even my day-to-day parenting behaviors. The main predictor is how I tell the story of my own past.
It sounds like magic, doesn't it?
It does. How does a storytelling exercise predict my child's neural development?
Oh, it's pure neurobiology. The AI isn't just some questionnaire where you check boxes.
What is it then?
It's a highly specific clinical interview designed to stress your attachment system.
Okay, so they put you under pressure.
They ask you to describe your relationship with your parents, specifically recalling times you felt rejected or frightened.
So they're forcing you to pull up those potentially traumatic implicit memories.
Yes. And then they demand that you explicitly explain them.
And how do they grade it?
That's the genius part. They aren't primarily grading the content of your memories. They're grading the process of your communication.
The grammar.
Discourse analysis, yeah. The grammar, the syntax, the pauses. Do you suddenly slip into the present tense when talking about a childhood trauma?
Oh, like the past is happening right now.
Exactly. Or do you get tangled up in these long, confusing run-on sentences?
What if someone just says their childhood was perfect?
If they claim it was perfect, but can't provide a single specific memory to back it up, that's a red flag.
What does the grammar actually reveal about the brain, though?
It reveals a metric called narrative coherence.
Narrative coherence.
If you can tell a cohesive, fluid, balanced story of your childhood, even if it was horrific.
Wait, even if it was filled with severe abuse?
Yes, even with severe trauma. If the narrative is coherent, you can still raise a perfectly securely attached child.
That's incredible.
It's a clinically proven phenomenon called earned security.
Okay, I need to make sure I understand the mechanism here. How does my ability to structure sentences translate into my baby feeling safe?
Because a coherent narrative is biological proof that your brain has successfully integrated its own neural networks.
Integrated.
It proves you've taken those raw, terrifying, implicit emotional memories and successfully woven them together with the logical, explicit processing of your brain.
You've actually processed the trauma.
Exactly. So when your own child cries or is distressed, your unresolved implicit trauma doesn't get blindly triggered.
Your alarm system doesn't accidentally go off.
Right. You stay physically calm, biologically regulated, and you can closely attune to what your child needs.
Okay, let's break down the 4 specific attachment styles to see how this neural integration plays out biologically.
Let's do it.
Let's start with secure attachment. These are the people who seem to effortlessly navigate relationships and stay calm in crises. What's their brain doing?
Securely attached people demonstrate high neural integration, specifically centered in the middle prefrontal cortex.
That's the area right behind the forehead, right?
Yes, it acts as the great physiological coordinator.
Okay.
The human autonomic nervous system has two main branches. The sympathetic nervous system.
The biological gas pedal. The fight or flight response.
Exactly. And the parasympathetic nervous system.
The biological brakes. It calms you down.
So in a secure brain, the middle prefrontal cortex has really robust wiring. It perfectly balances the gas and the brake.
So when a crisis hits...
They feel the stress, the gas pedal engages, but their robust connectivity immediately applies just enough brake to keep them out of blind panic.
They stay emotionally attuned and flexible.
Precisely.
This would be nice. All right, then we have the avoidant or dismissing attachment style.
This one is fascinating.
These are the people with that fiercely independent, I don't need anyone persona. Behaviorally, they look totally calm, even when a relationship is ending.
But the physiological monitors tell a completely different story.
It's a tragic biological contradiction, isn't it?
It really is. In the AAI, dismissing folks often claim they have no memory of childhood, or they speak in these vague platitudes.
And if a partner threatens to leave, they just shrug it off.
On the outside, yeah. But researchers hooked them up to biomonitors, tracking sweat and heart rate.
And what did they find?
Their biology is screaming in panic. Their heart rate is wildly elevated, and cortisol levels are surging.
That is another huge slap in the face. They are literally starving for connection. Their body is terrified of isolation.
But their brain has been programmed to suppress any outward expression of that need.
Why?
Because as infants, they learned a brutal lesson. Reaching out for connection resulted in rejection, or being totally ignored.
The anticipation machine wrote a rule, showing need brings pain, do not express vulnerability.
Yes. They shut down the outward behavior to survive. But the internal terror of isolation is still firing at full blast.
Wow. Okay, next is the ambivalent or preoccupied style.
The opposite presentation, basically.
These are the people who desperately crave intimacy, but the second they get it, they self-sabotage.
They become hypersensitive, pick fights, push partners away.
If they want connection so badly, why does the brain sabotage it?
It comes down to the inconsistency of their early environment. Their caregivers were completely unpredictable.
Sometimes warm and attuned, sometimes unavailable or intrusive.
Exactly. The child could never predict what they were going to get.
It's like a slot machine of affection.
That's a great way to put it. And intermittent reinforcement is highly addictive and incredibly anxiety-provoking.
So the child's attachment system just gets stuck in overdrive.
Permanently, exhaustingly hyperactivated. They learn they have to make a massive fuss just to get noticed.
And as adults,
they constantly scan relationships for microscopic threats of abandonment. The anxiety of will they stay or go is so agonizing.
That they actually create the rejection they fear. They pick a fight just to end the suspense.
Yes, just to force a resolution.
And finally, the fourth category, disorganized attachment. This one is just heartbreaking.
It's the most profound deadlock the human nervous system can face.
It's a complete biological paradox, right?
Biologically, every infant is hardwired to run to their primary caregiver when terrified. It's a primal reflex.
But what happens when the caregiver is the source of the terror?
Exactly. In cases of abuse, or if the parent is deeply frightening because they're dissociating from their own trauma.
The child's brain is trapped.
Unsolvable paradox. The survival instinct screams, flee from the predator, but the attachment instinct screams, run to the protector.
But they are the same person.
You cannot run toward and away from the same person at the exact same time. The neural networks completely crash.
So how does a child's brain survive a systemic crash like that?
The only escape route is dissociation. The mind actively severs its connection to reality.
It just fragments.
Yes, to survive the unendurable. In the AAI, these folks show massive lapses in reasoning, completely losing their train of thought.
Just slipping into trance-like states. If these implicit operating systems dictate so much of our lives, how do we know which one is running the show?
That's the million-dollar question.
The sources suggest we have to look at the exact thing professional society tells us to suppress.
Our emotions.
Right. For centuries, Western culture has elevated pure logic. Emotion is seen as the enemy of rational thought.
We revere the cold, stoic mind. We treat feelings as messy baggage.
But the shocking truth from effective neuroscience completely flips this.
It does. Without emotion, the human brain is entirely incapable of making even the simplest logical decision.
Honestly, that sounds like an exaggeration. I mean, if I could just strip away all my emotional biases, wouldn't I be the ultimate rational decision maker?
Right.
Like a supercomputer?
You would be completely paralyzed.
Paralyzed how?
We know this from clinical case studies. There are patients who suffered highly localized brain damage, like a tumor.
Okay.
It severs their emotional processing centers in the prefrontal cortex, but leaves their IQ and memory perfectly intact.
So they are your hypothetical supercomputers. What happens to them?
They can't manage their lives. If you ask them to choose between 2 restaurants for lunch, they can logically list all the pros and cons.
Distance, price, nutrition.
Right. But they cannot actually make a choice.
Because logic only provides raw, neutral data.
Exactly. Emotion is the physical mechanism the brain uses to evaluate the meaning and value of that data.
Emotion tells you what matters.
Yes. Without the somatic marker of an emotion telling the body, this feels right, everything is just an endless, equal list of facts.
That is wild. Facts give you the map, but emotion is the compass.
Precisely. Emotion is the physical manifestation of how well the mind is integrating energy and information. It's the barometer.
Okay, that explains internal emotion. But what about sensing the emotions of others?
Interpersonal resonance.
Like, say I'm walking down the street feeling totally fine, I see a stranger weeping on a bench, and instantly I get a knot in my stomach.
Your heart rate might even change.
Right. How does their entirely separate emotional state cross the physical void and get inside my body?
This is where we return to the mind existing between people. Specifically, mirror neurons.
Mirror neurons, I've heard of those.
When you observe someone else, you don't just watch them cry the way you watch a leaf fall.
It's different.
Very. When you see a facial expression, your brain uses mirror neurons to literally simulate their exact neural firing pattern within your own biological system.
Wait, I need to clarify this. So empathy isn't a higher order moral choice?
Not initially, no.
It's not me consulting my values and deciding I should be a good person and feel sympathy. It's an involuntary reflex.
It is deeply reflexive and subcortical. The visual data enters your brain, routes through the insula, and activates your limbic system.
So your brain maps their physical state onto your own nervous system.
You quite literally feel a shadow of their pain because your brain fires as if it's happening to you.
But if empathy is a biological reflex, why is the world so full of cruelty? What happens when societies override that reflex?
The prefrontal cortex can exert top-down control to suppress that resonant circuitry.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If someone is severely traumatized, or a culture conditions people to toughen up and view vulnerability as weakness.
The brain learns to actively inhibit those mirror networks.
Exactly. By suppressing our own emotions to appear strong, we physically disable our ability to detect the emotions of others.
And when that circuitry is blocked, society morphs into something terrifying.
We lose the biological mechanism connecting us to the suffering of others. You get systemic cruelty and profound isolation.
You literally turn off the receiver.
You do.
This ability to connect or sever seems tied to a structural division right inside our skulls, the split brain.
The 2 hemispheres.
The sources suggest modern society, with its obsession with data and literalism, is heavily skewing us toward one half. Let's break this down. What does the right brain actually do?
Well, first, it's important not to reduce this to pop psychology. It's not just right is art, left is math.
Right, it's more complex.
It's about how they process reality. The right hemisphere develops first in infancy. It's nonverbal.
So it communicates through eye contact, tone of voice, posture.
Yes, deeply connected to the visceral states of the body. It processes holistically. It sees the context.
And crucially, the right brain is where the autobiographical self resides, right?
Yes. It holds the continuous sense of being you across time.
And the left brain
Comes online later. Processes linearly, sequentially. It's logical, linguistic, literal. It loves rules and categories.
But its defining feature is acting as the interpreter.
Exactly. The left brain desperately needs cause and effect explanations. It hates mystery.
I read that in split-brain patients, if the left brain doesn't know the real reason for an action, it will literally fabricate a lie.
A plausible-sounding lie, and it will absolutely believe its own fiction.
So going back to avoidant attachment, the people who say, I'm fine, while their heart rate explodes, that's a hemisphere imbalance.
A perfect example. Avoidant attachment is a state of being heavily trapped in left hemisphere dominance.
They rely on logic and facts. They construct a narrative of, I don't need anyone.
But they are entirely disconnected from the emotional resonance of the right brain, which is screaming in panic.
What does a healthy hemisphere balance look like then? Imagine a toddler trips and scrapes their knee. They're crying hysterically.
Okay.
If a parent is trapped in their left brain, They might just hand them a Band-Aid and give a logical lecture on gravity.
Which obviously doesn't calm the child down.
Yeah.
The child is in right hemisphere emotional flooding. Logic can't penetrate that.
So what does an integrated parent do?
They intuitively use both. First, they soothe through right brain communication. They hold the child, use a soft melodic tone.
Right brain to right brain connection.
That regulates the autonomic nervous system. The crying slows. Only after they are calm does the parent engage the left brain.
They use words to explain what happened. You tripped, it hurt, but you're safe now. Left brain to left brain.
Connect with the right, redirect with the left.
But what if we, as adults, are stuck? If I realize I'm acting like a left brain robot, analyzing everything, how do I fix it?
Dr. Siegel introduces a skill called mindsight.
Mindsight.
It's the learned ability to perceive the internal world of yourself and others with clarity.
So looking inside and saying, I'm experiencing fear right now, rather than being consumed by it.
Exactly. You don't believe I am fear.
It's the difference between drowning in a raging river versus standing on the bank watching the water flow by.
Brilliant visualization.
Yeah.
Mindsight is consciously directing the flow of energy and information.
Engaging the middle prefrontal cortex.
Yes, linking the observing left hemisphere with the emotional data of the right, without letting either dominate.
But mindsight requires calm. It requires the prefrontal cortex to be online.
True.
What happens when the pressure is just too high? You're in a massive argument, the stress is unbelievable, and you snap. You say something unforgivable.
We've all been there.
What is the physical mechanism that makes us lose our minds like that?
Your physical brain essentially trips a circuit breaker.
A circuit breaker.
When stress surpasses a threshold, your prefrontal cortex, the CEO of your brain, responsible for empathy and impulse control, literally powers down.
The highest level reasoning center just goes offline.
The neurochemical flood of adrenaline and cortisol physically impairs the synaptic firing. The primitive survival brain takes over.
So in interpersonal neurobiology, you map this using the window of tolerance.
Yes. Imagine a thermostat regulating a comfort zone. Inside the window, your sympathetic heater and parasympathetic AC are balanced.
You feel alert but calm. You have mindsight.
But if the stress pushes the temperature too high,
This thermostat melts.
the system breaks down. You fall out of the window of tolerance into one of two extreme states. First is chaos.
Sympathetic hyperarousal. Raging, panicking, gas pedal stuck to the floor.
No brakes. The second state is rigidity. Parasympathetic hypoarousal.
The shutdown protocol.
Depressed, numb, dissociative, you completely sever connection to the world.
And this is where trauma does its invisible work, right? It doesn't just push you out of the window temporarily.
Severe trauma actually alters the thermostat. It shrinks your window of tolerance until it's almost completely closed.
And we have to go back to memory to understand why trauma is so persistent. When someone with PTSD is triggered, they aren't just remembering a bad event.
Because the explicit memory system of the hippocampus was knocked offline during the trauma.
By the massive spike in cortisol, the cognitive librarian is unconscious.
Exactly. The brain records the raw, terrifying data as implicit memory, but fails to stamp it with a time and date.
That is chilling. It lacks a time tag, so the brain cannot physically recognize the trauma is in the past.
For the traumatized brain, time stands completely still. They are trapped in an infinite, unending present.
So a tiny safe trigger today, a smell, a noise, instantly activates that implicit memory.
And because there's no timestamp, the amygdala fires as if the threat is happening right now. They are blasted into chaos or rigidity.
So how do we unfreeze time? How do we expand that window and get the CEO back online?
The sources point to a method that seems almost too simple. We have to write a news story.
It sounds like a metaphor, but it's a specific neurological intervention. Narrative integration.
Naming it to tame it.
Right. There's research showing that simply writing down your deepest trauma in a diary measurably boosts your physical immune system.
Literally increasing your T-cell count.
I need you to explain the physical mechanism there. How does moving a pen on paper change the immune system in my blood?
Think about where the trauma lives. Stored in the right hemisphere as raw, chaotic, nonverbal, implicit memory.
Purely sensory.
When you force yourself to write about it, you are demanding your brain translate that nonverbal terror into vocabulary and grammar.
You're forcing it into the left hemisphere.
Precisely. You are sending electrical signals back and forth across the corpus callosum.
The bridge between the hemispheres.
By translating raw pain into structured language, you are processing the memory. The left brain's structure acts as a container for the right brain's emotion.
And when it processes it, it realizes the threat is over.
The prefrontal cortex signals the amygdala that the event is a story of the past. The alarm bells power down.
The chronic stress response drops.
And because high cortisol suppresses the immune system, lowering the stress removes the suppression. Your immune system rebounds.
Narrative integration heals the body because it integrates the neural networks. That's amazing.
Integration is really the holy grail of this entire framework.
If pathology is being stuck in chaos or rigidity, what does ultimate mental health look like?
Integration. The linkage of differentiated parts.
So letting different areas of the brain develop their own unique functions and then connecting them.
Yes. Linking the logical left with the emotional right. The implicit past with the explicit present.
And linking my integrated mind with your integrated mind.
Exactly. Dr. Siegel outlines 9 domains of integration. When a complex system is integrated, health, wisdom, and vitality naturally emerge.
Think of a symphony orchestra. If every musician plays the exact same note, it's rigid and boring. Rigidity.
Right.
If everyone plays random notes at the top of their lungs, it's chaotic noise. Chaos.
But if everyone plays their own unique instrument, different notes, but perfectly timed by the conductor.
You get harmony. That harmony is mental health.
Health is harmony. It is the maximization of complexity through integration.
We have covered incredible ground today. How empathy rewrites our DNA, how infancy writes our background OS.
How trauma freezes time, and how writing narrative bridges the hemispheres.
But as we wrap up, we have to address the biggest truth here. The ultimate deception of modern society is the myth of the absolute individual.
We are conditioned to celebrate total independence, the lone wolf.
But the biology proves that is a fiction. Pursuing it is a symptom of evolutionary sickness.
We don't exist in a biological vacuum.
Right.
Our nervous systems demand continuous social connection to survive.
We are each other's minds. Our brains are physically constructed by how we treat each other.
The relational Wi-Fi is always on. We are constantly programming each other's operating systems.
So I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought.
Yeah, this is crucial.
If your mind is literally constructed from the energy and information you share with others, who are you letting build your brain right now?
Think about it.
Look at the 5 people you interact with the most. Look at the digital voices you let into your head through your phone. They aren't just your social circle.
They are the physical architects of your neural pathways.
They are the hands playing the keys of your DNA. Choose your network carefully, because you aren't just choosing your friends, you are choosing your mind.